Go. Right. Can you see a record thing?
I'm excited to be back.
Fantastic. The Quik and Squirrel Show is back. And ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. QuikSand.
I think it's the Squirrel and Quik show, but you know, we digress. We don't want to spend 20 minutes on that.
It's not. It's the Quik and Squirrel show. It's back anyway. Back again. So we haven't done this for a long time. It's been a year and a half since the last time. It was a bit of a product of the lockdown. I suspect the first couple of ones of these, and then we sort of had some fun doing this, and that was 18 months ago. But now we have a good reason to be back. And the reason is that since we last did this 18 months ago, we have been co-running a team. We've been managing a team together, and now we have won a bowl. So congratulations.
So yeah, high fives across the pond here. This is a good yield for some time well spent, and it felt like a good opportunity to circle back to this idea and do another video and talk, rather than abstract strategy and so forth. We could talk some nuts and bolts of what it's been like working together and how to fit both of our egos into one helmet and actually make something work here, which, you know, now that we've got some proof in the pudding, that's pretty good. So here we are.
Absolutely. And really just to gloat, right? Just to be insufferable and smug, and we won. And I guess we should say sorry to, so we beat Dallas in the bowl, and Dallas has got Co-GMs also as Evan. I can't actually remember the other chap's name, so apologies to the other guy, but sorry to them. Sorry, Evan. It came down to a coin toss. The bowl that we won was last kick field goal, absolute coin toss. Didn't work out for you, did work for us. I actually really like the way that Evan played. He plays with real boldness. If you remember, he did a trade where I think he traded 7 first round picks.
To get quarterback, right? And then later he's in the championship game. Right?
Exactly. So he plays with real boldness. So apologies to him, but I'm afraid we're just going to be smug instead.
Yeah.
And I guess we should have a go at talking about, how did we win? How did we win in a way that's interesting to anyone that plays front office football 8, but also in particular anyone who plays multiplayer and is trying to win a bowl. How do you win a bowl in multiplayer? And we think we got some understanding of how to do that, and we're going to have a go having a chat about it.
Just right. I like it.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's have why don't we talk about how it came about in the first place that we're doing this, that we ended up being a Co-GMs. And I'm going to put on the screen, if I can find it, our record. So this is our team. We are the New York Jets in a league called the Red Zone Blitz League, which anyone watching this will probably know about already. If not, you can Google it. And here's our record. And you, sir, came on board in 2043, which is this year here. Can you see that on the screen, all right?
Yep, I can. It looks pretty good. So I remember it, and I also specifically remember that one of the videos we did, you were in the midst of some fits with this quarterback, Rico Sharp, who had like a conspicuous void, I think, in short passing maybe, or I'm trying to remember the details.
Short passing 0, that's it.
Right. So he was a flawed quarterback that I think you made a big trade to acquire, and then he wasn't delivering wins in the fashion you had hoped. We talked about it in one of our videos. I think that was one of the first dominoes that fell that led to the two of us talking about, well, we could go take a run at this team together. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, we can get this guy going, which I just couldn't. I still don't really. It's one of the few things there's lots of things about front office football 8 that I don't understand, obviously, and front office football 7, which is the game I got into the version I got. But that was one where I really, really don't understand on Sharp, because I thought I knew fairly well, or had some sort of sensible understanding of which quarterbacks good and which ones are bad. And it was the only time actually in my multiplayer front office football experience where I picked a quarterback, went big, thought it was going to work, and it didn't. And I still don't know why it didn't work. So my first season, if just looking at this list, that 2036 season was my first season. I came in that season, and then from 2030, if you just sort of look at it as a series of how it kind of. So I came in. There was a good roster. I came in, and this is a bit of there was a season of transition to chemistry, which we're going to talk about, I'm sure. which was a bad season in terms of performance, on-field performance. But it was just, look, I need to get to a point where I've got enough guys with chemistry and all the rest of it. And then there were some good assets on the roster to begin with. So there was then a period where I went to the bowl 3 years in a row, lost twice, won the third time, and then that was good. And then there was another year of being competitive, and then the Sharp trade happened, which was my attempt to be proactive, changing to a different quarterback, and it went wrong. It didn't go well at all. And at that point, the game, for me to keep being what I try to be, which is a 10-win team every season, would have been super time intensive. I then got into, and this is the bit of the story, I guess, where the Co-GM bit comes into play. I then moved jobs. So I left one job and I was on a period of gardening leave before a next job. The gardening leave, I basically didn't look at my screens at all, right? Anything to do with sort of computers or whatever. I was just like, I'm not really going to look at it. That was a period where we did do the round 1, 2, and 3 of the Quik and Squirrel show, because that's my idea of fun. But just sort of generally, I was trying to sort of stay pretty offline. And then when I knew I was going to get into my new job, I knew it was going to be a pretty demanding job. And I thought, oh, this is now giving up a team in the Red Zone Blitz is a big deal because there's a long waiting list. I had noticed, I think at the time, that you had joined the waiting list. And it was like, hang on a moment, there's an opportunity knocking somewhere in here, isn't there? And I think that was in the 2043 season. So I'd had a couple of years of, fairly good roster, just sort of going 8-8 really, because I wasn't paying any attention to it. And then I think we got together doing this there, 24. Is that how you? I think that's how we got together.
That's right. I think our first season was the 8-8 season, and we did the same thing you just described. We started with a roster that needed some attention, and particularly on chemistry. So we ended up, as I recall, I think we turned over 2 of the 5 units of the roster in that first season, and knew we would suffer a bit for it. So we limped through 8-8. We'll get to the next season in a moment, but
yeah, we'll have a chat about the 1 and 15.
No, but I think that was the beginning of the collaboration, taking a medium tier team and seeing where we could go with that.
Yeah, for sure. And then we will come back to 1-15 in a minute, because there's good reasons for that, we should explain. But then we had a sort of 2 seasons of what I would expect our kind of run rate performance to be: 10, 11 wins, 10.5, and then 11 wins. That's what I would expect sort of our run rate performance to be. And then a year, I can't actually remember much about going 8-8, but there you go, a year of going 8-8. I think we realized pretty early on in that season that it wasn't clicking for whatever reason. I can't remember. Did we get? Right. I can't remember what. Can you remember that? I can't remember that season at all. We must have put the younger guys in.
Yeah, we had a quarterback injury. You can see our top passer.
2000.
So
there you go.
We had to cycle through a few hobos out there throwing passes, and our game plan is pretty pass intensive. So we didn't really do well when we had.
I remember that now. That was when the 25 rated guys were getting thrown in, and we were just hoping it would
go
work,
ahead,
right?
Go get it, Billy. Right?
It may have been. I think it may have been the classic one of a quarterback injury around the time of the trade deadline, so you literally can't do anything about it.
Oh yeah, right. That adds up. Yeah.
May have been that one, and then things clicked. I think we kind of. Right. We got it clicking, and then we have had 3 seasons of being, I think, either 1 or 2 seed, and now we've got a bowl win, which is great. Well, I guess we'll talk about that as well. But so the record's been pretty good. I think there's a bit of that bit in the middle doesn't look so good, but if I'm definitely going to sort of plead for inactivity. But I think the rest of it was pretty good. It isn't the kind of consistency that I'm looking for, but let's see how we go in the seasons to come. I do value consistency more than anything. Regular season consistency more than anything. I think you feel the same way, don't you, on that one?
I do, although I would say I really don't mind terribly. I mean, we had the one weird hiccup year, but I mean, the fact that we had an 8-8 season, I'm setting that aside. That's an aberration for reasons. But I think what we've got right now is a roster that we should expect to win not 10 games, but 12 games every season until we lose a quarterback, or if we lose our number 1 receiver, then we realign. But I think we have enough of all the ingredients we want that the next 2 seasons we should remain a 12-win team, I think.
When I was at university, I was taught by a very good lecturer. He said, look, I can make you rich. He said, there's 2 things you need to know. The first thing is, two things that help you feel rich. First thing is how much stuff you've got, and the second thing is how much you expect. He said two ways to get richer. One is to get more stuff, and the other one is to want less. So we're trying to manage our expectations down as much as possible. But I'm afraid I probably do agree with you to some degree. Yeah, look, there's the record. I think it's all right. I think we've got a bit of well, let's talk about why don't we just talk about this 1-15 season while we're here, right? So let's just talk about this. This is what happens 1-15 in 2044. I'll just bring it up on the screen. We were the worst in the league that season. And this is what happens when you let me near the game plan. So what happened was, we got together, we were figuring out how to work together and how we were going to do this. And I said, hey, I've got all these ideas, whizzy ideas about how to do the game plan. And this happened, I think, I'm trying to remember when the patch came in. So there was the patch, wasn't there, to take this game from version 8.3 to 8.4. And it came in somewhere in, I think, this summer, somewhere in this 8 and 8, 9 and 7 period, I think. Can't remember precisely. But basically, the game changed. I had made no attempt, and these days intentionally, I make no attempt to open the single player version of the game anymore. What I don't want to do is get into what I've done in the past, which is start like testing in single player how to play for multiplayer. What I've found is I enjoy multiplayer a lot more if I don't have as much sense of how the game will respond to what we're doing. Yeah, that's just my idea of fun. But I then somehow simultaneously thought I'd think like that and also change loads of stuff in the game plan, particularly changing loads of stuff which was near the sort of middle of distributions to the extreme end of distributions and just seeing what the game would do. And what the game did was it told us to go and do one, basically.
And I, as I recall, like this was a circumstance where the deep experimentation happened not in the week-to-week game plan submission, but it was in the once a season opportunity to change your whole playbook. I think I'm getting the terms right.
Yeah,
right?
The playbook, and I can't even remember what I did. I think what I did. Can you remember? I think I was just like, okay, Rico Sharp can't pass short, so we're going to delete all those, and then we're going to. I can't even remember what I did, if I'm honest. It was just a whole series of bad ideas.
I think we had a cascade of modestly bad ideas, and then they may have been good ideas. I don't know, but we had 3 or 4 core ideas of let's try something new and innovative and do it to an extreme, which is dangerous territory in this game anyway. But I think what really sunk the whole thing was in building the playbook. I think you went through iterations to make sure that every single play was for the style that matched our offensive coordinator. We had whoever he was, he was an Erhard Parkins
or whatever,
right? Whatever, right? So he had a style, and we sort of bought into this idea that we should match the playbook to the style. And I think what we ended up doing was concentrating the playbook so much on plays that would be recognized by defense that we were summoning familiars by the second quarter in every game. Every defense.
You've got me remembering it now, Quik. So this is what I think happened. So it was like, right, okay, Sharp keeps coming 8 and 8. Admittedly, there's a lot of inactivity in there, but still, we need to break the cycle. We need to do something extreme. Okay, we're going to go in the play generator thing that's in the game. People, I'm sorry, this isn't really a beginner's discussion, but I mean, people that play the game know what I'm talking about. You go in that page where you get the playbook and you can insert plays. We're going to tell it to insert 100, 200 plays in the style. And there's a slider in there for how much like the style you are. Put that to the maximum. Then go through every single play that isn't exactly in the style, delete it, do it again, keep doing it, till you get 200 plays in the style, whatever the number is on the playbook. And then I deleted all the short passing plays and kept doing it. And then I deleted all the running plays and inserted just short yardage, smash back, because I've got this thing, or I had this thing. Anyway, look, the point is, don't let me anywhere near the playbook ever again. It didn't work, but it did tell us, I think we also around this period said, right, okay, we give up on Sharp. I think we just let him, I think he may have been in his contract year and we said, okay, we're done, or whatever we did. I can't remember.
Right.
And so we just basically deleted and started again. I think what we also did, and this is a standard move for people who play the game in a chemistry style, want to get 8 starts into their players to make them count for affinities, is when we realized that we were just broken. I think we just put the young guys in, right? Once you realize that there's no playoff contention, it just becomes a game of getting all the 8 starts for all, particularly on defense, where it's hard to feed starts into players, right?
Yeah, so at whatever we were, 0-7 or 1-6, we just pulled the ripcord and said, "All right, get all the young pups out there. Let's get everybody at least clicking for chemistry for next year." Right? And
which was good for us. But of course, we ended up with 1 win, which is terrible. We ended up with a 1-1 pick, which is a bit ignominious. It isn't really something that we're in the market for. I sincerely hope we never get it ever again. And I actually feel quite pleased that we didn't get, because of course when you've got a 1-1 pick, which I think I've had in multiplayer front office football 3 times ever, maybe twice ever.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and I don't want to have it. And I've never had a quarterback out of it. I've never had the 85 rated quarterback guy. I've just never had that in front office football multiplayer. And we didn't get that when we got to 1-1. I can't remember if any quarterbacks listed in the league came out of that draft from 2045. What we did get was an absolutely dominant receiver, which is now here. You can see this name, Crowning Shield, and we come on to talk about him perhaps as probably the lead player in our team, certainly the most valuable player, I would imagine, on our team, although we can have a discussion about our quarterback. We got that player. I think it's a perfectly reasonable criticism of our team at the moment. Would we be as good without this guy? And obviously we wouldn't be as good. But if we had a normal good receiver as opposed to a really plus receiver, would it make any difference? Of course it would make some difference, but we talk about that when we talk about sort of roster composition. But I'm actually happy. I mean, this would have been a lot less fun to do what we've been doing for me, I think, and maybe you'd go interested in do you agree with this? If we'd have got an 85 rated quarterback, what do you reckon? I think it would have been a lot less fun doing this.
Agreed. I know. I think this has been a really interesting experience, and I do want to talk about the two of us finding a groove and working together. And these hiccup seasons and things like that were part of that. But anyway, so the way this has unfolded has been great, and I was more emotionally invested coming down the stretch in this last season because it really did feel like we had a wide open shot to win the league.
Yeah, ditto. And when the players are happening, it was like, normally you want to win the players. I have to say, I was pretty heightened for me. I was just like, I really, really, really want to win this. I'm not going to lie. Like I was pretty amped when it all came in down the stretch. And in this league, the Red Zone Blitz, is a fantastic league. We have the bowl as a live broadcast, and that was just that was a fun experience. Let's just dwell on that then. Let's talk about what it's like having this Co-GM thing. For me, I've really enjoyed it. What's your take on it, Quik? How have you found being in this sort of Co-GM experience?
Well, I would say I feel like there are 2 paths here, and I think you and I have chosen the one that's best suited to work perfectly, but it may not be the easier of the 2 paths. Seems to me there's 2 ways to do this. One is person A takes a specific list of responsibilities and person B has the remainder of the responsibilities. That one person does the draft and free agents and the other person does the game plan and other things like that. And sort of neither one steps on the other's toes, right?
Yeah.
Your job, not my job. I don't have anything to say about that part of the team. And I suspect you could work a team that way, and I probably could work with a partner where I only had input on specific subset of the decisions.
Yeah.
You and I have, we danced around for a while on exactly who was going to execute what pieces of the job, but we now have become collaborators on all of the pieces. And we've ended up settling on a game plan that we're generally comfortable with on both sides of the ball. And the one we're using started with something that I had been using, but we tinkered with it to fit this team a little better. And now we're very much of a like mind of what kind of players are we looking for. We start each off season with a global conversation about what our objectives are. I mean, I feel like we are truly co-general managers rather than complementary pieces trying to assemble into one whole. You do agree that that's where
yeah,
we've landed?
I do agree with that. I mean, I guess as a nuts and bolts, I mean, just for the benefit of others who maybe consider doing this, maybe. I mean, what we've found has worked pretty well is I guess you tend to handle the actual in-game, right? The actual sort of the actual
Right.
simulations and going in the game and changing or whatever. And the bulk of the decision making, therefore, is yours. The sort of day-to-day, you know, decision making is yours. I've tended to sort of, I kind of see my number one role in what we're doing as to make the stage where you cut down to 53, just basically make that as hard for you as possible. so that's kind of the way I think about it. So when the draft comes around, okay, so who can we find in this draft? And then when free agency comes around, let's make sure I'm throwing ideas at you for that. And then trade ideas, you know, I keep a list at each position, and I've got to know obviously the system which predominantly is your system following the 1 and 15 incident. I've got to know kind of what you want in the system, and you know, keep a list at each position, kind of who's the best people in the game population that we could recruit into that. And then when we see opportunities to trade for those players, we will do that. You know, I think we try to sort of be pretty sensible participants in the trade market. Anybody who's listening to this in our league, you know, we pay healthily. I hope the league knows that. I think they do know that. We tend to do a few trades here and there. We do a bit of free agency here and there. We probably don't hit as often in the draft as I would like, because hitting off in the draft in the style we want, this chemistry style, is pretty difficult. You're looking at 1/6 of the players in the draft any given year, and yeah, there's only out of that 1/6, there's only so many that are going to hit our hurdles for chemistry and all the rest of it. But we found some. And really, I just want to get to that point where when it comes cutting down to 70, 60, and 53, that you're just sitting there thinking, I have no idea how to do this. And if we're there, then we've got a chance of getting our 11 wins or whatever we're trying to get at the end of the season, right?
I think that's a fair way to put it. And I would say I don't want to let it stand with you shoveling all this accolade in my direction. I don't think it's quite fair to suggest that, you know, this team is coasting off an infrastructure that I built. We put our heads together to come up with what sort of a system do we want to pursue, and we've made a number of changes from the vanilla QuikSand offense in particular to suit the things that we're trying to do on this team. So I'm comfortable with that as a collaborative. You've been the main engine for drafts, and I would say we're probably about down the middle on managing free agency. I'm active in free agency just by habit, but I tend to carpet bomb with a lot of non-committing contracts. A lot of pay a guy $4.99 million for each of 3 years and a minimum bonus. And if he happens to be Mr. 52 or 53 on the roster, we keep him. If not, basically no harm done. I do a lot of that.
Yeah. Whereas I find myself messaging you saying, this guy is the only guy in the population that fits this position exactly the way we want it. We need to overpay and get this guy, or whatever, right? Yes, I find myself messaging that quite often, actually.
Almost to the word, right?
and yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's I have, as you know, kind of a weird approach to player recruitment anyway, which is I've got some kind of hard and fast lines for what I'm looking for at each position. And I know at times you've been like, well, you know, these sort of bright line tests are all very interesting, but if you can't find a guy, you've got to be more pragmatic. And here's the 3 or 4 guys I've found as well. And again, it's I guess it's softening the hard edges, isn't it? Right, that's the sort of collaborative nature of it. You know, I'll sit there and be going, well, I can't find a guy at this position, and you've already have signed 3 of them, and saying, well, we could, you know, I've got 3 of them on the roster, and we've not got any. There's no bonus attached to them. Which one should we keep? And it's like, oh yeah, I see what you mean now. You've got the. But, look, I think it obviously depends on the people involved. There are different people now trying this. I should put on the screen here. If you look at this is the, I was going to say RZB, but of course that's too British, and you'd say RZB, and we can't really say that. I'll just call it Red Zone Blitz. We're doing it. New England in our division do it. Dallas is doing it. And at one point we had an unbelievable dream team combination of Zach and Eli in the league, which was
right.
in danger of hoovering the league up and just leaving the rest of us just sort of watching from a distance. That would have been what would have happened if they'd have done 10 seasons together. Who knows what would have happened. Another thing, just while we've got this on the screen, by the way, I said it before, but I'll say it again. Yes, we've won the bowl in this season, but actually, if you look at the regular season performance, Nick's team stood out a mile in the league this year, even though he doesn't really have a quarterback at the moment. 15-1 without a quarterback is an unbelievably good performance. So if you are watching this, Nick, well done. And if this was the Premier League, you would have won the league by a mile. But it isn't, and we won the bowl, so we can be as smug as we like. He's only won 9 of them or something ludicrous like that. All right, so that's really, I guess, touching on what being a Co-GM is like, and it's really good fun. What I propose we do, because we said we'd talk about how, I guess, sort of how we won and how we think that we can sort of add something sort of more generically to somebody watching this or listening to this about how you go about trying to be a playoff team in multiplayer. What I'd quite like to do is just take examples of guys in our roster we like and talk about why we like them. Is that a good idea?
I think it's good, particularly because the most boring thing we could do would be to sort by whatever the scout rating and just look at our top 10 players in order, right?
Yeah, here we go.
There's no value at all. Everybody understands that big red bars is a centerpiece concept to make your team good. And if you play single player, you can accumulate tons of them. If you play multiplayer, you have to feast on them where you can get them. You have to overpay and so forth. So what I thought made more sense for us to talk about is, rather than, we've got a few guys who are rated in the 70s and several in the 60s and so forth, but let's talk about guys who are valuable to us for reasons that are not entirely obvious. I mean, some of them are good players, but some of them are, why is that guy here? And I think that's more interesting.
So that's our attempt to be as cool as Moutpal, because we did a video
right.
We did a video with him where it's like, how the hell did you draft this guy? So let's have a go at trying to be as cool as him, and let's open guys that look rubbish and explain why we like them. So here's my favorite player in our roster.
For sure.
Are you on board for this guy? Are you on this guy's track? This is my favorite player in multiplayer front of football at the moment. And are you on board for this guy?
Well, I love this guy. He will not. He's going to retire a New York Jet, right? There's no doubt. There's no version of how this career plays out where he doesn't get his number 50 jersey retired at the Meadowlands for us. That's going to happen.
I think I'm on board for that. I actually just noticed while we're looking at this, that's the year that we started doing this, 2043. So this must have been there you go, the 6th round pick in what must have been our first draft, or either our first draft or the year before.
It definitely
was. Look at that for cohesion for a start. So those of us who play this game a lot will look at that and realize that this player played from year one. And probably was a beneficiary, come to think of it, of our awful season, was thrown straight in to get his 8 starts, even though it was a low round pick, and made 100 tackles because we were dreadful. The high number of tackles, of course, is a bad sign because it means your defense is rubbish and you're on the field all the time. And so we threw this guy in. He never really had good rating. They were okay, right? They were okay ratings.
Right. This guy is not a shell of his former self as a function of he had a terrible injury and now he's here just for reminiscences. This has been the player the whole time. but like you said, cohesion, right? He's now played 8 full seasons with our team and has tons of starts. He's been our tackle leader probably 3 or 4 out of those 8 seasons with 70, 80, 90 tackles. This is a guy who's a useful player in front office football who costs us just a trifle over a minimum salary, who nobody else has any interest in signing other than to fiddle with us.
Yep.
But this is a player who is like, this is other teams' trash. This guy is our treasure. Right?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a player that we've struggled, right, in the period that we have been Co-GMing, which, as I mentioned, was I think 7 or 8 seasons, we have really struggled to find linebackers, haven't we? I mean, we every time we come into the season saying we need to find one, and then we don't. And so we've ended up, this has become a sort of default, and he's become a sort of, as time's gone on, he's become a kind of team mascot, right? We can't we can't find someone that we're willing to pay for who's better. And we can find someone better, but we can't find someone better that we're willing to pay the money for, or pay the picks for, resources for. And so we keep just coming back and back. Now, I've no idea. I genuinely have no idea how to assess a linebacker in this game based on all of these things, on like the numbers you get given. I don't really know how you're supposed to assess your linebacker group unless they're rushers, in which case you can sort of pick for their sacks or whatever. I just don't know, but it's good enough, right?
I think what we believe we get out of a player like this is when he's on the field. Again, my theory of cohesion is that it is calculated each and every play based on which players are on the field.
Yep.
And when he's on the field for what looks like 700 snaps for us, everybody around him benefits because the cohesion in his unit is higher substantially because he's out there.
Yeah.
So even if he himself is not a giant tackle monster or rated 100 at anything in particular, he's not an absolute embarrassment at anything. He has a good run defense bar and always has. So he will make tackles. He doesn't seem to have a void in anything that I really care much about. We're not going to put him in bump and run coverage on the outside X receiver. We're not going to do that. So this guy's a non-embarrassment player who is now a chemistry asset and a cohesion monster. And that's the best we can do for lack of having a 65 rated middle linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, if we could get the 65 rated middle linebacker, we would, but we haven't been able to. And until we get one, we've got Peyton Box, and he's Mr. Box. He's our guy, and he's been perfectly good for us. I would say we'll come on to talk about this later, I think, but our run defense is atrocious, but you can still win with an atrocious run defense, so you might as well make it cheap, and that's our guy. So there's Peyton Box. So he's one of my favorites. He's, as I mentioned, he's the mascot. The next mascot, the coming mascot on the for the future is this guy. So I'm super pleased with this guy.
Yes.
I am super pleased with this guy. So this is a wide receiver called Vera. I see he has very carefully been nurdled to 8 to 16, not only 8 starts, Quik, but 16 by you there. He is a chemistry asset as well, just like Box was, and he is an undrafted free agent who is a wide receiver with high route running, getting downfield, and endurance. And I'm not quite sure how we've managed to do this. But this guy will be on our team for 10 seasons with no doubt. I look forward to the bit where he's in his contract year and you change the game plan so the ball doesn't get thrown to him at all.
That's right.
That will happen. And this guy will cheaply be on our roster for 8, 9, 10, well, maybe not 10 seasons because he's rated low enough that he might retire early. But that's the plan, right? Is that kind of how you see this guy playing it?
Without a doubt, but again, he's not a disgrace, right? He looks like he might be a void in avoiding drops, but he has a route running bar. He has a getting downfield bar. He has one useful skill beside catching the ball. The other ratings are non-zeros. I take that as meaningful. Like this guy, if we needed to, we could play him as a wide receiver 4.
Oh
5.
yeah, no, not 4. I was going to say 2.
Well, I don't know. I know you're a big getting downfield bar guy.
Yeah.
So I don't see him as quite that useful, but we have a couple slots in the game plan that are specialist spots, so that the only type of pass that goes to a receiver in the slot in this particular formation is this type. So we can go as a no courage type or whatever. We do that in our game plan on purpose to make uses of guys with limited skill sets. And we have one role in one formation that's for a guy with getting downfield and nothing else. Yeah. So he should be figured for not 40 targets, but probably 20 or 30 targets for most of his career, I would think.
And what would you have paid in the draft for this guy, knowing he was this good?
Well, for a specific reason, I would probably have been willing to pay a 3rd round pick for this player. And that reason is his route running, if it develops into the 80s, it will exceed the route running for our number 1 receiver.
Yeah. No.
And for those who are listening carefully, if you're not with me yet on creating this guy as the perceived best receiver on our team to attract double teams, then you need to graduate from FOF school and catch up, because that's the potential value of a decoy receiver in this game is not to be sneezed at. And
undrafted wide receiver David Vera is looking set to be a guy who receives a lot of double coverage in his career, and his ratio of double coverage to actual receptions could be an FOF record.
Yes, that's good.
And sort of there you go. So I pay more than you. I pay a second round pick for this guy. I think this guy's great, but we managed to get him undrafted. So we had a bad draft. I say we. I was mainly me. Had a bad draft last time, but we did manage to get this guy, and so that was good. One more from me on the players I like on our roster, and it's this guy. So this is I mentioned earlier about me sort of suddenly deciding enthusiastically that we should overpay for a player, right?
Yeah.
And that was what we had with this guy, right? So this guy was on the roster at Jacksonville. I didn't get him in the draft. I was annoyed with myself for that, because he went early, second round, 4th pick of the second round. And I think I was sitting there with a low second round at the time, because I just can't bring myself to use a first round pick on a running back. Although in this version of the game engine, maybe I should change that for you. But anyway, and it was ideal, and he's landed at Jacksonville, and he didn't get that much production going on his rookie season at 3.8. And I just looked at this guy and was like, well, hold on a moment. For our system and the way that we're trying to set ourselves up, this guy is pretty much a prototype. And at the same time, what he isn't is 75 rated, and obviously he's going to be amazingly valuable to everybody. He was just what we want. Right. And so I was like, well, hold on a moment. Like we can overpay a lot for this guy. And we can offer real trade value to Jacksonville for this guy, way more than anyone else will offer. And let's go about it, and let's be proactive about it. I think we gave in the end a running back that on the face of it looked about as good and would be about as good for the median team, plus a second round pick. I think we may have got, it might even be a high second round pick that we got for somebody else or whatever. It was a lot of value, right?
Right. Yes, and we overpaid. I don't remember specifically, but I do remember you drew the line and circled this guy and said, we need this player. He's the fit, and we should pay whatever it takes, and it will probably be too much.
Yeah, which is not very us, right? Because normally we want a sort of platoon of like bums at running back, and that's kind of how we feel about it. But it's like, let's go and get one that's expensive, and it's turned out all right in the end. He came onto the roster. He had a 2 up seasons, a sort of not so good season last time. I don't know what given the rest of that, other than just simple variance, and then a really good season this time. And I think where do I look for fumbles? Is it in here? Yeah, pretty low on fumbles compared to attempts. Just a bit of receiving upside as well, although not much. I don't think that's a big part of what we're trying to do. And yeah, it was like, okay, there we go. And that's running back dealt with. I think he was pretty young as well. So he's 28. He's got 2 or 3 more seasons to go. And I like it when you've got the running back injuries in Francis Football 8.4 are unrealistically low, and you can it's a position that you can just solve for a long period of time, isn't it?
I think that's about it. So no, I'm happy with the move. I don't look back and think wistfully of what might have been with the 39th pick of that draft. Not worried about it. This guy's great. I'll take 5.5 yards per carry. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. Anything that starts with a 5 for that metric, we should be very pleased about. And yeah, I guess our run pass mix is pretty pass is more towards pass than not only the median team in France football, but the median sort of playoff contention team.
Yeah, we're not trying to win the game with the running game, but it doesn't hurt to have it be a net positive. Right?
Yeah, I really want it in the playoffs too. And in the playoffs, and you're up against someone, it's like we're going to end up running it somewhere, and we're going to need the yards. And this guy's got that little bit of power inside, which I like very much in a running back. Right. So
in the championship game, we had 2 running backs both running pretty effectively when our passing attack was absolutely not working. We couldn't get the usual Jets offense going, and we managed to come from behind in the title game using guys like this.
Yeah, so just enough in the running game, right? That's, I think, the mentality that we go into the season with. So that's what I like about this guy. Yes, it's an overpay, but it wasn't massive resources for us. We were able to make a sensible trade. We were able to offer the league, good solid trade liquidity, and so it was everybody got something from it, and we got a lot of surplus value from it simply because of the way we're set up, the way that we kind of align to the way we're set up. So that's I like that very much. So that was that. I'm going to do one more, and this is I'm going to talk about our first round pick in the last draft. This is so we had the volatility stick of death hit us
for our second time in only 7 drafts or 8 drafts.
I think we have been a bit unlucky in the draft. So I think it's this guy.
Yes, that's it.
There you go. First round, pick 20. And to get this guy, we traded up with 2 2s and 2 3s, right? So we would trade up with 4 picks.
Yes.
To get up to 123, having previously, and I think in the same round, subsequently we dealt our first away for future first. We
felt great about this guy.
We had him at the top of our board, didn't we?
Right. We had him among our top 4 or 5 players in the whole draft, and you had me readily convinced to abandon our chemistry structure and take this guy, notwithstanding that he was even potentially a problem down the road. But we were convinced that he was so good. If you click on the red and green ratings area, you'll see the League Scout had him graded as maxing into the 80s.
Yeah.
And then when he was finally revealed, we lost 30-some points on that. So he eroded immediately from a really high-end pass rusher. He looked like a super promising player.
He looked like the prototype 3-4 pass rusher, right? He looked like 15 sacks every season for 10 years.
Oh, in our system, I felt very good. He would be a sack a game kind of guy. Yep.
Yeah, and we were like, okay, I don't really get why this guy's falling. I recognize that defensive players are less attractive in the first round of the draft, or at least they certainly were in sort of previous iterations of front football. I don't know if that's still true anymore, but they certainly were at one point. And okay, we'll bet the fight, but we lost, and so we ended up. And this is the bit that I liked, is that the player didn't meet our expectations, and it wasn't a chemistry fit. And I think we say to ourselves, the only people who aren't chemistry fits in our roster are the superstars. This guy isn't a superstar. And we just traded him immediately. I think we got a 3rd round pick back. So we turned 2 second round picks and 2 3rd round picks into 1 3rd round pick.
And a bunch of
and it was like, and I'm not sure if you listen to me making a suggestion at the top of the draft. I mean, that's the second time we've had it, right? And it's the second time I've had it where we've picked a guy and people have said, wow, what a pick. I remember there was a tackle, do you remember? Again, expected 80 rated, 90 rated. And I remember picking him and getting the ultimate accolade of immediate message from Zach saying, you bastards, that was the guy we wanted. And it was like, okay, like we are well away here. This is going to be great. And of course, exactly. I don't even think that guy got a 40 rating. I mean, it was
right.
It was
brutal, he went to dust. Yeah.
Yeah. So it can, but no sunk cost fallacy with us. We just we moved on, and so I'm pleased about that, because if we try and make the roster hard to get onto, you don't need a high rating to get on the roster, but you need to fit our description.
Right.
And that's not our roster. This is our roster. So that's some guys that jumped out to me, Quik, that I like, that I think sort of good about. What about you? What sort of jumps out to you?
Well, indulge me for a second and click over to the personality view. And we don't want to make this conversation about chemistry, but sort on that personality column. So first of all, even before we go to the page that reveals how many of these players are affinities, notice our commitment to the personality column.
Yeah.
Right. So
I didn't realize it was that extreme, I have to be honest.
it's insane. Yeah. So this is the extension of that logic. We have a handful of players on this team that are not chemistry fits, and we've decided they're so central to what we want to do, we'll live without the chemistry. But we've built the team through chemistry, no surprise. I'm completely enraptured with that system. You've been sufficiently invested and curious that when we got together...
Indoctrinated, yeah.
Yes, that's well put. So there wasn't really any debate about whether we would employ chemistry. It was, would it dictate everything or merely almost everything? So we chose the latter course, but we are very committed that if we're going to do chemistry, we're going to do as much of it as possible. So like if you click, take a look at the second player on that list, this wide receiver Martinson.
Okay.
Right. No need to talk about him for a long time, but another non-embarrassment player who could be on the field and could get some targets. Looks like we don't do that much, right? Only 2 targets in the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
But games played. He plays almost every game because he's a special teamer. So he's been with us for 6 seasons. He's now a cohesion asset. Yep. And he plays on special teams. He's an excellent special team player. And if worst comes to worst, if we get 2 or 3 wide receiver injuries on a roster, he could go out and play in the slot or play as wide receiver 3 or whatever, right? He wouldn't be an embarrassment on that front.
Yeah.
Like this to me is like a foundational level player for a team built with chemistry in mind and a 100 rated personality. And a nice low leadership, so he's not a threat to take over the job. He just wants to sit back, sing Kumbaya with his friends, and toast his marshmallows. Right? This guy's super happy to be on the team and to occasionally tackle the punt returner.
Yeah, great. And it's time for us to figure out if he'll play for if he'll sign for minimum salary again, because he's coming up to his contract.
Good bet he will.
Fingers tightly crossed for T. Go on, TJ. You know you can live well, TJ, on $1.79 million a year. You can live very well in the New Jersey area on that kind of money, TJ. So hopefully you'll keep doing it.
So we've probably got a full close to a dozen players on this team. Maybe if you counted some of our the chemistry leaders who have no skills at all, but we have a full dozen players on this roster who are spectacular in those only trivial marginal ways. Go down to Leland Bergman, 7th or 8th player. So basically the same player, just at cornerback, right?
Yeah.
If we needed to, we could line him up. He can play bump and run reasonably well, but he's now just sort of Uncle Leland. He's going to play special teams and he's going to tackle the punt returner. And if we need him, he'll help. But mostly he's just going to sit back with his 96 intelligence and 96 personality and not cause any penalties. And he's going to occasionally get the punt returner, and we'll put him on the field from time to time, but that's all we really need or want out of him. Yeah. Valuable player to us. We found him on the trash heap because, of course, he's not valuable to most of the world.
Yeah, hopefully we'll find another 1 or 2 of those this offseason. I guess every offseason we try and find another Leland or another TJ, right. And see if we can pick one of these guys up from somewhere because they're valuable to us.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. What else? I mean, are they your faves? I mean, we really do sort of herald the crap players.
Sure. I mean, I don't think there's any reason to go super deep with 6 more examples of the same sort of. Actually, go down to that cornerback about 2/3 of the way down this list, Alex Reno, because he gave us a season for the ages for no particular reason. This is a good quality cornerback 3, maybe 2 if you need him, and then his second season in the year. Look at that. That's
I was disappointed with the mean reversion. I mean, there's obviously going to be mean reversion, right? The 8. I don't really know what this number. Do you know what this number means? I don't know. It's just you want it to be over 80, right?
It's an aggregated number of all the components to the left. So your ability to not give up catches and to make pass defenses and get interceptions. Bundle it together. 82.5 is supposed to be a break-even number. Higher than that is unusual.
Okay.
And an 87 season is outrageous.
Yeah. Is 82.5 league average? I thought
not high, league average. 82.5 is what you get when you first step onto the field, having generated no statistics. It's the sort of null result from the formula. Okay. So bad things go down.
So Reno went 8 interceptions, right?
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, we've really got one here. This is we love. This is what I'm trying to do. So make it difficult for you. Sorry, Quik, you're gonna have to cut TJ off the roster because we found a 4th round pick who's going to be really good. And we looked for it. We can't always find it. We got it with this guy. We got the bars we liked. We got got good chemistry characteristics, and we were like, okay, fantastic. We're off to races. And the guy starts rookie year. Always difficult in rookie year. Second year. Demolition.
Boom.
More mean reversion than I had hoped for. But look at this guy's playoff performance.
Right.
And isn't this the guy in the final drive for our defense for the year, didn't he? I can't remember. Like he got to the quarterback or something.
Yes, he got a sack. Yeah, he had a huge sack in either overtime or in the fourth quarter of the championship game, like complimenting maybe a half sack in his entire career to that point. So now maybe has earned a space in my heart. This might be my favorite player on the team.
But
that one peculiar season, magnificent, but also just that, like, you found him in round 4. He's better than he had a right to be. He's a chemistry fit. He had the weird year. To grade into the 80s without any interceptions over the course of this past postseason, that's actually a pretty good accomplishment. That's a really good offseason.
Yeah, so, and this guy, this guy will graduate. I don't know what you think. We haven't talked about it. I think this guy ends up probably being our number 2 cornerback. I hope he doesn't become our number 1. It could happen though. It's not inconceivable the way that we kind of set things up. We don't really spend big on defense. We spend what's left on the cap, right, on defense, basically, is the logic. Right. And this guy will continue to get more and more. Just looking at the record, he does seem to be. I don't know if the game's got like inconsistency built into it, but he's obviously a pretty inconsistent performer for whatever reason. But we'll be parading him out there next year for another 500, 600 snaps or whatever. So that's Alex. Anyone else you want to highlight?
I think like maybe the only other thing I can think of that's worth it is we're not paying top dollar at quarterback, and we don't have a superstar quarterback, but we are getting results that are befitting of a high-end quarterback, right? So there's our guy.
Yeah.
As I recall, you targeted him as a free agent, or not as a free agent, as a player on another team's roster that would be worth pursuing. And you knocked on their door and offered a third, and we ended up getting him for, I think, an early second, which I was a little skittish about. I thought maybe we were overpaying because he had not delivered very well on the other team.
That's it. And in Division 2, so let me help you. So he while I was in the Rico Sharp miasma, I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know what that word.
I think that's probably the right word.
There you go. So we were in the Rico Sharp situation. So 3 seasons before because we got together in 2043, and I saw this guy. I thought, hold on a minute, this is the sort of under the radar profile that I'm looking for, and I just wonder if there's a chance, and maybe it's a sort of mid-round pick kind of guy. And then New England, who are obviously in our division, made a great pick at 124. It's like, oh wow, okay, that's a really good pick. Now, considering the upside downside. That kind of position in the draft, I thought it was a really, really good pick, and turned out to be a good player, but not an amazing player. Here's the record at remember, this is some of these years might well be pre-patch, so these good-looking or sort of all right-looking quarterback ratings and the good ball retention, the ratio of touchdowns to interceptions is sort of a decent way to think about that. Is it was sort of okay, good, not great, and I think New England got to the top of a draft one year and got to pick an 80 rated or whatever. I can't remember how they did it. Maybe was it the year when they got whatever, it doesn't matter. They suddenly had this guy available. Yeah,
right. That was your cue that this player had become expendable for them. He's been a starter, like replacement level starter quarterback for another team that's decided to move young. So you saw this as an opportunity. Let's bring this guy aboard. And so after 5 seasons of maybe putting up a 2-to-1 ratio of touchdowns to interceptions, he comes to the Jets, and we improve on that a bit.
Yeah, and again, it's the same logic. It was a system fit, right? So it's like, okay, this guy, you can build. This is a build around. And if let's see what the age was. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons ago. 30. So it would have been 27. So you could sit there and say, all right, we might get 8 seasons or whatever. We've probably got 2 more seasons, right, with this guy. Is that something like 2 seasons? We need to start thinking about. Right. We start thinking about the next one soon. Look, I wasn't expecting this season we've obviously got outlier before, and it's a short season. He keeps getting injured too, so I wonder if that's a thing. Do you think is it like Football Manager? Do you think the players in this have got injury proneness sort of hidden? Is that believable?
I think that's the case. Certainly some players have recurring versions of the same injury. Like a player who has a bad knee injury you can count on there being subsequent knee injuries. So I think the game is reasonably trying to implement what we think happens in real life. But,
yeah, okay. I mean, look, dream season for O'Connor, though. I mean, when he came in the second half of the season, we were already getting some good production from this guy who you'd brought in from Oakland, right? I think it was.
Right.
Yeah. He's like more conventionally, the bars are nicer, just more red on the screen.
Right.
But all good. And had sort of been okay in other places, other stops. Has been a top, was a second pick in the draft. Actually, better from a chem perspective. It forms better affinities with the other position groups. And it's a shame that this player's not 6 years younger, really, because this could be the next one for us, couldn't it? But with no cohesion, he came in and I can't remember where we were after 7 games.
Yeah, but 5-2. So I mean, very, very credible. Kept what we thought was a top tier team. He kept us alive toward the top tier while our starting quarterback healed from an injury that he suffered late last season. That's what took us off course. We thought we were on target for a chance at the title the season before. O'Connor got hurt, and we ended up losing quarterbacks 2 and 3. We ended up inviting, basically street sweepers to come in and start at quarterback in the playoffs.
I mean, I think that this goes to show how much I know about this. I don't know much about this game. I'm sitting here chatting away like as if I know loads about it. I sent you a message. I remember it saying, "Do you know what? I think with this other guy, we should stay at 500 until O'Connor's available and back from injury, and then we'll see where we are." And it didn't pan out that way at all. And I just don't know anything about this game. The other thing I don't know about on this game, I mentioned the previous quarter, we had this guy called Sharp who had a 0, I think, for short passes, and it seemed to be extremely disruptive. Maybe that was what it was. Maybe it was something else. This guy's got a 0 for third down passing. I haven't looked to see our third down efficiency is all right, isn't it? I don't see any particular reason to think that our third down efficiency is bad. I have no idea what that's trying to tell us, really.
Yeah, same. I have basically, I just figured that this is a quarterback who, I mean, all those first ratings, right? Those first 5 or 6 ratings of the distance of passes. This is the quarterback's ability to not have what's registered as a bad pass. If you watch the game log or you watch the Sola Vision, that it'll say the quarterback just threw the ball way over the receiver's head or just made a bad pass or things like that. It gets credited in a statistical category as a bad pass. And this guy will throw them more so than the other guy we had on the screen a moment ago, particularly in the screen level and in the long level. He's going to several times a game just throw the ball in the dirt or into the stands.
Yeah, but thankfully he doesn't seem to throw it too near the opponent's defensive players.
Bad passes and interceptions are different skills in this game. So bad passes are incomplete. Interceptions are a function of failing a test with the hidden avoid interceptions bar. That's probably not realistic, but that's how FOF works.
And I don't know what's happened in the Quik game planning tinkering, but whatever you've managed to do to get to a point where we're getting 7.5 yards an attempt from this guy, well done. I have no idea whatever you've done there, but that's great. And in the playoffs, it was 8.5, so that's even better. And there's a little, that tells you a little something about we would have got some luck in the playoffs, would have ridden our luck a little bit. And I'm sure you need to ride your luck in the playoffs. That's what the playoffs are. I mean, that's dare I say it, that's a flaw in the entire setup of the NFL, which is the best team in the NFL is rarely the team that wins a Super Bowl.
No quarrel here.
Yeah, but that's me as a Premier League football fan who thinks that the team at the top of the league should probably be the best team in the competition, but that's a whole separate discussion we don't need to be having right now. So, all right. So, if you work on our basis, which is to win a bowl, you need to consistently get 10, 11 wins or more, and then get a bit of luck. That's exactly what we have had. And this quarterback is the kind of player that can get you 10, 11 wins or more with a little bit of luck. What this player probably won't do is get you, consistently dominant seasons, unless you're as good at the game. Where's that thing gone? Unless you're as good at the game as Nick, and there are very, very few people in the world as good at the game as Nick, the chances that you're going to go 15-1 with a middling quarterback are very, 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 very low. But you can get to 10 or 11 with a middling quarterback and some sensible decision making, right? I guess that's what we're sitting here saying, really.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, there are a variety of ingredients, right? And the team we faced in the championship game, the Dallas team, was the reverse. That was the team that went all in to get a very top flight quarterback and ended up actually underperforming a little bit by your Pythagorean analysis here. You know, should have been better than a 10-win team, showed it in the playoffs. They finished on a 9-game winning streak and had just a marvelous passing attack behind a superstar number one quarterback. That is the tried and true way to win in this game, is develop an unstoppable passing game and everything else falls into place.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, look, this thing, we should probably just pause on what this is. Pythagorean projection is an attempt to just simply use the number of points scored and scored against a team to come up with a projection. It's quite rudimentary of how many wins they should have got. And it's not perfect, but I found the more I look at it, it sort of fits over a long time series with a sort of sense of which teams are actually the best teams, as well as anything else does. And I find going into the playoffs, it's quite nice to look at this to sort of see how likely you are to sort of contend against the other teams. If you're 2 on this, you're like, okay, we actually might be a bowl contender. If you're 8th or 9th on this, you say, well, okay, we're in the and that impacts, by the way that, I mean, I don't think we started off talking about the 1 in 15 incident, but you know, some of the more experimental ways of playing the game. If you are 8th, 9th on this list and you're in the playoffs with a wild card, you know, or 12th in this case, I think that WC is telling you that team got a wild card. Yeah, when you get into the playoff game, you might as well just put a super high variance game planning, because the chances are you're not going to win, right? Your probability of winning is so low, and you might as well just throw it, really. I mean, it's not as good as it was in the previous patch, which was a lot more NFL realistic, where you really could just go for some high variance strategies of passing lots and not punting it and all the stuff that teams in the NFL do where they feel overmatched. But anyway, that's kind of a secondary. That's O'Connor, and he's been very good for us. And let's hope the next quarterback we find is going to be as good for us as O'Connor has been. And let's not be too smug about this guy, because the guy that New England replaced O'Connor with won them a bowl last season. So that's right. So well done to them. And that's 2 bowls in a row for our division. So next time you see someone on the forums telling you that they're in the hardest division, they can come and talk to New England, ourselves and our other fellow members of our division, because our division is pretty damn difficult. What else do we want to talk about? Should we try and loop this back a little bit to the couple of things we've done before? Because there are some people out there, Quik, 90 odd YouTube subscribers can't be wrong. And some people have clicked on a previous video of us talking about chemistry, and in particular one that we did talking about surplus value in this game, and the sort of the money ball idea, right? Surplus, we're going to come up with some amazing strategic insight, shaft of light insight that's going to, so is this money ball? I don't think it is. What do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think that what we're doing is some sort of through the looking glass. We have a totally different way of thinking about this game, right? I mean, if that's really the classic Moneyball, is that everybody's doing it wrong, we're going to do it differently, and we're going to gain an edge that way. I don't think that's really the case. Sure, our team is like, if you were to flip over to the attitude advisory page on that roster.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, right. Okay. We are heavily committed to chemistry, right? So this team is loaded with players who get along and click. And I know it's an unknown how much of a factor that is, but whatever factor it is, we are maximizing that. We are virtually clicking with almost every spot. There's maybe 6 players on this roster who have no chemistry. Maybe it's that many. Yeah. So we're doing all we can there, but there's no secret, right? It's not like we're acquiring unusual, unconventional players. We're just doing what everybody knows you can do. We've just committed to actually doing it.
Yeah. So in our division, Miami does it, right? So Buffalo and New England in our division have got the big time quarterbacks, and then Miami and we have gone for this approach. I mean, there's you could try and marry them both up, but it'd be very difficult. Right. This is what we've got. for the time
Right.
being, I guess.
But
it's
then,
not unique, right? Other people do
right.
this.
Exactly. I mean, again, maybe not to this degree, but it's not like we have discovered some new metric or some new, like we'll get to game planning too. I don't think we're doing something really phenomenal there, but so this isn't super exceptional. It's maybe more of this than most people are used to, and I think that I would plead guilty to that. But this isn't it. Like, this isn't the whole team.
Yeah,
I think
I'll put on the screen the statistics of our team. I mean, there's nothing in here that you would say is remarkably unusual either, right?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're number 1 in yards gained. We're number 1 in passing yards, number 1 in points, and we do okay running the ball efficiently, but not in volume. And then on defense, we play the Matador run defense where.
This is I mean, we should, because again, is it Moneyball? We've got the worst run defense in the league. If you run against us, you will succeed, and that's normally true. It's not normally true to this extent. We try to. I think we would want to be league average in run defense. We aim to be league average. We don't aim to be better than league average, but we aim to be league average. And this year we were poor. Unfortunately, our man Peyton Box, who we were talking about earlier, was running around chasing after people. He's our run defense, and he wasn't very good this season, and they ran past him quite often. But but this is it's not like, again, this is not money, but we're not like, we're intentionally rubbish at run defense. It's
and just, part of it is it's a function of our offense, because we're scoring more points, we're gaining more yards, and we're passing for more than any other team in the league. So naturally, there's a lot of points in the game where we're up 14-3, and we are lining up expecting the pass. And to the extent that a team still runs a third of the time, fine, have 5.5 yards to carry, trying to run your way back in from an 11-point deficit. Right? Go ahead.
Yeah, we had a healthy dose of turnover luck as well. I mean, we're built to turn for ball protection, but we still got loads of luck on top of that. I mean, that's an obvious element that probably will revert next season. I mean, we're not going to, I heard you earlier when you said, we expect to do well next season. I guess we will, but we can't expect to get the kind of positive turnover variance and all that kind of stuff that we got this time around.
That's true. That number should cut in half, but it shouldn't go to 0. I don't think our team's median expectation is a net 0 on turnovers. It might be +4 or +8, but 13 is probably a little in the bonus.
Yeah, and we fumble it a little bit more than I'd like us to, but we're not going to pay the money to get the second running back that will fumble it less than the one we've got at the moment. So that's us. We're probably a little bit more long. We're probably a bit more long-term thinking than your typical team, I would say. I think that is probably true. When we look at this roster for next season, we're already sitting there thinking we've pretty much got the best part of 50 slots almost filled out of 53. Maybe it's 45 slots filled, and that's atypical. But that's because we're trying to make our roster decisions 2 or 3 years in advance if we can. Not always something you can do, of course, but I think other people are trying to do that as well. It's just a question of it only really is something you actually find yourself doing when you start getting it clicking. What else that's surprising about us? If you look at that page, I don't know where it's gone, the page where it talks about where you get players from. One, where is it? How acquired? I like this page. This is a really interesting page. It shows you how people build their rosters, right? And I like this thing. So who's building through the draft better than others? Whose draft picks stick better than others? And we're quite low on this one. We're only 17. I'd like that to be higher, but it is a bit of a function of the, in the chemistry style of playing this game, you don't know all the things you need to know about a player's chemistry characteristics in the draft. And sometimes you draft a player and they don't come out the way you expected them to, or you get a few surprises, which is a good thing, but it just makes that hard to get that number up. I want that number. I mean, it's a thing for me. I want that number at least in the middle of this distribution, really. I want that to improve. And I feel that's a little bit on me, because I think we can get that higher than that, and I think I just need to do a better job. But I think on the flip side, our free agency performance is good. You have an unerring ability to to sort of guess where the market's going to be in free agency. I don't know how you do it, but it's you are the best at that in front office football. I don't mind heralding that, and I don't think that's a massive trade secret either. I don't know how you, I guess you've just been doing it for so long, right? Your pattern recognition is so developed at this point that you the amount of times you snipe someone by like 100,000 is pretty amazing. But it goes to show why we're high on that. And then I don't know, we're sort of fairly active in trades, but we're not the most active by any stretch. We're kind of somewhere in the middle on that.
Right.
But yeah, I want to get that draft number up. We got a fair amount of picks as well to do it with this time.
I think we're poorly situated to do that though, because we have so many of the, like, I don't want Leland Bergman to be dislodged by your 5th round flavor of the month cornerback who looks like one day he might be a 42, right? Yeah. I want Leland Bergman for the next 4 years being the same guy he is at 22.
Yeah. Well, I do see. One of the things that I see chemistry teams do. I know you do it, is to sort of trade your picks to make them high quality picks. So you got fewer, better picks, as opposed to throwing darts at the board, because you end up in these kind of marginal situations. I don't know. Maybe you end up doing that. I don't know. But I guess the point is on just the way we set ourselves up here. Nothing we're doing here is unique. We're accumulating players pretty much the same way as everybody else. There's nothing unique in what we're doing on Talent ID. We're not doing anything clever. The game plan, the roster management, the cap management, I think it's all pretty sort of identifiable to anyone who's played this game a lot. There's no fancy tech going on in the background. I've got a thing which saves me time, which sort of creates shortlists automatically of what I should be looking at, but it's not really novel. If we've just discussed, it doesn't draft nearly as well as it should. And if I really wanted to improve the way I play this game at the moment, I really need to just sort of stop and if I had an afternoon where I sat down and really thought about drafting, I think I would improve very significantly versus stuff that I'm trying out at the moment. And maybe I'll do that one day. Well, not very significantly, but I've definitely got some obvious gaps to plug in how this version is different to previous versions. But what we're doing is not optimal here. It's sort of close enough. And you know what, for me, in terms of gaming, what I have optimized for is sort of game enjoyment, right? I think there was a period, there was a previous version of this game. I can't remember if it was 8.2 or 8.3. We're all currently on 8.4, which is probably the final version of this game. There was a version where I had exported loads of data, been really data driven, really sort of looked at it with lots of spreadsheets. And I had solved it a bit more than I have this version. And I was better at the game. I was performing better. My teams were doing well. And I wasn't enjoying it as much. I don't know why that is. But I was playing it almost like a sort of semi-algorithmic way, just doing whatever the spreadsheets told me to do. And it wasn't as immersive as this is. This is, I mean, listen to us on this. We've got really into some of these guys on the team and all the rest of it. It's just a lot of fun to play like this, right? And I think if I had the game as solved as, I don't know, Zach does, I don't know if it'd be as immersive. I just don't know, and I don't particularly feel the need to find out.
I think that's fair. I mean, I would say, so one of the first things you got into was you see part of your role is, okay, like I'm going to be the one who sits in game and clicks when we're at 58 players and gets it down to 53. And you've seen it as a challenge to make those cut downs extremely hard.
Yeah.
So what that's led us to, though, is we've sort of wound our way to the right kind of questions. We're constantly asking ourselves, why should this player make the roster?
Yeah.
And every single player on our roster of 53, or if we are clever, 55 with a couple injured stashes. But every single season, when we go through the cut down process, the players who make the roster do so because they have a series of check marks in good places because they are helping the team in some specific way. And that's why this year's 6th round pick has a mountain to climb to make this team, unless he's a long snapper, because we already have decided, like, our structure at running back is what it is. We've got our running back 1, and we have our cheap running back 2, and we have a big bars fullback for some peculiar reason.
We haven't even gone there.
but it's like, so we've gone out of our way to build the roster, and really fine tooth comb the whole thing.
Yep.
So there's no chaff on this roster. Everybody's here for a reason, and I think
that's a single insight, I think, from the way that the main thing I probably learned from the way that you play the game when I was first getting into it, and I was trying to figure out how some of the top players play the game. I guess the single insight that, if I was going to boil it down to just one, it's every player under 53 is there for a reason, and you've kind of made a real effort to maximize what you get from every single spot. That those spots, sort of 40 to 53 on the roster, are not unimportant, right?
That's right, and tons of good FOF players. The player number, like you said, 40 to 53, that player number 47 on your 53-man roster is the guy you just drafted in the 5th round, and you thought he might be an intriguing little pass rusher if he can just develop a little bit. But then in preseason, instead of his future looking like a 49, now he looks like a 44. But still, 44 is like okay. If I could just get him out, like, he's not good enough to start, but maybe next year or maybe the year after, maybe he'll help our team somehow down the road. That guy's garbage, and he didn't make our team.
Yeah, and I guess if you were watching our team on the TV, and you watched the actual product of all of this, which is all we do is throw the ball again and again to this guy, who's called Crown and Shield, who looks a bit like a sort of NFL or RZB version of Michael Jordan, right? And they're sort of just throwing in the ball again and again and again and again. And you think, well, the reason they're good is because this guy is good. Now, obviously, this guy is good, right? There's no doubt about that. And this guy is really good. But I think it's the other way around, right? The cause and effect of all of this, I think the reason we're good, obviously it's because this guy is good, but the reason this guy is doing particularly well, I think, is the whole, I mean, we're not going to repeat 9 yards of target again, I expect, but the reason has done this and is so productive for us is the whole system. This is the tip of the iceberg. It's a nice tip of the iceberg, but this is the tip of the iceberg. Without the iceberg, this guy is an upper quartile performer in the league as opposed to a clear standout performer. That's how I think it plays out. And I also think that we can't expect it to be like this all the time. So I think that the next season or the season after, whatever, this guy's performance will mean revert, and you've got to have something else. It can't just be a sort of hero ball. And I think that's I mean, if you sort of abstract away from FOF from it, that's why I like the NFL, right? It's cool. Obviously they sell star power and all the rest of it, but it's not really a game where a single individual makes the difference consistently, with the possible exception of like a Tom Brady figure.
Right.
A single individual does not win NFL games, right? It just doesn't work that way. That's not how the game works. It's a system game, right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
And yeah, that's what I guess why have we sat here and talked about this for an hour? It's because we just thought we'd explain a thing or two about how we come to have our little system. And what's so cool about this game is everyone's got their own. So everyone's got their own.
Right.
And what's super cool about, and come back to where we started, the Co-GM thing, is I get to learn about yours and you get to learn about mine. And we've kind of found out a few, the amount of times where it's been like, well, the way I do it is like this. Oh, really? I didn't know that was a thing. Or vice versa.
Right.
It's been pretty cool. And and it's cool that it's gelled. Can I ask you one more question, actually,
sure.
before we dismiss? Is how different is this to what you do if it's not us in this league playing together and it's you in the IHOF on the most successful franchises in multiplayer front office football, full stop? How different is it?
That's an interesting question. I think for me, I'm more willing to suffer a poor quarterback for lack of being a perfect fit on a team that I am only accountable to myself. And I trot out some relative hobos on teams that I've built, basically thinking that, well, this combination of cohesion and chemistry and the whole system behind them will keep them from being terrible, and I'll be fine. I can win 11 games with this really rugged, poor player. I think playing together where I feel like I have accountability to deliver for you as a co-manager, I don't think I would have traded for our quarterback O'Connor. I wouldn't have traded that early second round pick to get a second half of his career guy like that. And I probably wouldn't have made the trade for our running back, and I think there's a number of things I wouldn't have been as aggressive in doing. I wouldn't have committed to this non-chemistry tight end. I probably would have just sloughed him off for surplus rather than make him a focus of the offense. That's a really good player.
That's this guy, right?
Right. So that's a really good player. He doesn't fit our chemistry scheme. And on a team I was building myself, I probably would have shopped him in year 3 to see if I could get myself, an early second-round pick in hopes of newer player chemistry fit or something stupid like that. So I think I suffer a bit for lack of smarter accountability. I think you've drawn me in a direction that's closer to optimal than what I probably do left to my own devices. And
it's interesting, the accountability point. You kind of feel like it increases the sense of, oh shit, I've made a mistake. I get that when so I come up with, I think, hey, this would be a really good draft pick, and it goes wrong. You've actually got somebody to say, hey, look, I made a mistake. It makes the game more fun, right?
It has definitely done so for me. This is, I don't think I would qualify this. Like, playing this team with you for just several seasons has actually, I think, been the most rewarding thing I've done in multiplayer. I've built teams that I really like it, and I'm now mostly over it. I mean, I still have my teams in other leagues and so forth, and I still enjoy it fine, but I don't derive great joy out of much of any of that. I've derived great joy out of playing this team with you, having these exchanges, our occasional disagreements, but then rubbing our hands together over some magnificent 28 rated player who's going to be a great fit for some reason. I've enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah, man, me too. It's been awesome. And look, I think there's an advert, if ever we need it, for this Co-GM thing. Is a great idea. If you listen to this and you play the game and you've never given it a go and you think, I don't know how you find someone to work with to do it, but it's great. What I am waiting for is the first full-on coaching staff. So maybe this is the way that this is how we deal with Nick, right? So to stop this nonsense from just perpetuating season after season, where a guy who hasn't even got a quarterback is just clearly the standout performer in the league season after season. I think we need an all-star cast, right? So we need Zach and Eli need to come back. We need to get all the guys that everybody sat there, in front of their computers and coming up with the sort of, can you imagine a full-on coaching? This guy does the offense, this guy does the defense. It would be amazing.
You're straying into infinite monkeys territory.
It could be. That'd be just super cool. This is our draft guy. Well, this guy looks at our.
Right, we cease to be important as individuals, but someone amongst us can eventually generate a game plan. I like it.
Exactly. What about who does the draft? Well, this guy assesses prospects on the West Coast. This guy is the guy on the East. I mean, it would be very cool. I don't know. Look, we've had a well over time doing this. Long may it continue. What I want to see. I mean, we're obviously going to have this. We've had this 1-1 megastar on the roster. When this guy ages out, let's see how we get on after that. I feel pretty good about our prospects. Let's find out. I'm sure we'll have our ups and downs in the record, but I want to see if we can do what I think we can do, which is a sort of consistent 10-11 win performance, and hopefully get back to a few more decent postseason performances and just enjoy ourselves doing it. Now, I did say that we were on here to gloat. Is that enough gloating? Do you think? Is that enough smugness? I think that was quite smug. Have we got anything else to...
I feel like your deference to Nick and your insistence on only talking about 11-win seasons, you need to work on your gloating game, because I feel like there should be more spiking of the football and rubbing it in the nose of the opponent. I think that's where we need to be. So, New England got lucky and won their championship. We finally
there we go. Finally, our calling. There we are. And
that's not really my way of doing things.
You can't wind
either.
You can't wind back from there now. I think we're. Look, I think we've said we don't have much more to add. I mean, I really don't think that we've got any particular secrets, but I hope that what I do hope is that someone, maybe if there's someone who's listened to this all the way through who doesn't already play multiplayer front office football, and the probability of that is infinitesimally small. But if there is, it'd be pretty cool if that person, whoever they are out there, listens to all this and thinks, well, that sounds pretty cool and immersive, and even though on the screen, you know, this isn't a game with particularly good graphics and all the rest of it, and it's nowhere near as obvious and user friendly than, say, Football Manager, which is a brilliant computer game. And this is a bit harder to get to grips with, but the point of it is, if you sort of roll with it, there's an amazing level of depth in this, and we've just found yet another layer of depth, I guess, by doing what we've been doing over the last 18 months or so. Exactly
right. Great way to wrap it up. This has been a joy doing this video, but it's been a great joy working on this team with you. And I don't think we found the skeleton key. This isn't the Rosetta Stone that we've somehow like beaten the game. We haven't solved this. We're not Cheyenne, you know, beating checkers. We're not doing that. But nonetheless, this has been really great.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. All right, let's go. Let's do that. If I can turn the recording off, I don't know how to do that. This could be an interesting end to the video for everybody. There.